So, today has not been a good day for the U.S. Air Force. Let's get into that.
Judy, that is right. We've just learned that Iran shot down that second plane and it crashed into a neighborhood. We know that the pilot here is safe.
That second plane. So, this is,
So they did shoot down an F-15.
that happened as the first event that happened today.
I did see this.
An F-15 was shot down.
The missing F-15 jet pilot, don't worry, we'll find him.
سلام علیکم خسته نباشید. آشه سلام علیکم. انشالله پیدا میشید. آقا سلام علیکم یا الله یا سلام.
پرچم همیشه بالا.
Well, apparently after that, more aircraft were shot down.
The other. A U.S. Air Force one-seater A-10 Warthog attack jet also crashed in the Persian Gulf region, this on Friday. According to a U.S. official, the pilot on board was safely rescued. Just 2 days ago, President Trump said Iran was...
That's two U.S. aircraft in the last 24 hours. But reading this title, there's more.
...decimated, both economically and militarily.
They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100%.
That was obviously a lie, right? Two aircrafts in the last 24 hours.
Annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force.
This downing of the fighter jet comes as President Trump escalates his threats against Iran's infrastructure. On social media Thursday, the president writing, the U.S. military hasn't even started destroying what's left in Iran. Bridges next, then electric power plants. Trump saying the U.S. blew up 3 Iranian bridges, sharing this video on his social media, and continuing to warn Iran to make a deal before it's too late. Iran's Fars news agency saying at least 8 civilians were killed and 95 injured in a U.S.-Israeli attack on a bridge near Tehran.
That bridge there was like pride of Iran. It was going to cut down the commute through Tehran by opening up this alternative. And I'm sure there are a lot of people in Iran that are pissed about this. So let's see Asmongold's reaction to all this.
A U.S. Black Hawk conducting combat search and rescue was hit by Iran during their mission to locate a downed F-15 pilots. The crew is accounted for and safe.
So 2 U.S. planes and possibly 2 U.S. helicopters damaged and attacked.
I'll look at that in a minute, too.
What the White House will ultimately say on this, and similarly with the military. But it is, a huge blow for this Trump administration.
Of course, just yesterday saying they had no anti-air equipment left.
In particular at a time when you've heard the
I
president.
don't think it's really that big of a deal, honestly. Like, if you shoot down one airplane...
That's some cope. You watched the same speech as I did yesterday where he said they had no air defense left. Didn't you hear that yesterday, Asmongold? Less than a day later, they've shot down 4 U.S. aircrafts.
I'm surprised this hasn't happened a lot more. Like, that's just my own opinion. If you do 11,000...
It has. Don't you remember that graphic from the other day? 3 above Kuwait fighter jets and that F-35 like a week and a half ago. It's happened before.
Bombing missions, and you have 1 plane that gets shot down. Like, I think that's a pretty good fucking ratio. Like, think about that. It's been going on for a month now.
Yes, but the trend is the problem. Are they getting new anti-air equipment? Has Russia provided them an S-400 system? Is that why they start shooting down all these planes?
I mean, holy shit.
Try to project confidence about completely diminishing Iran's military capabilities. And so we'll keep you posted as we learn more on this, Wolf and Pam.
Yeah. Think about how many thousands of sorties been flown over Iran and 1 plane is lost. It's a huge win. Yeah, it's very, very...
It's a big propaganda victory for Iran, and it's particularly embarrassing considering Trump saying they no air defense whatsoever left.
Is down. Isn't that like... I mean, think about like you're Iran. You somehow a plane goes down. Maybe you shot it down, maybe you didn't.
Considering they took down 2 planes in the last 24 hours and those 2 helicopters, I'm pretty sure it's intentional. They're aiming for us, and yeah, they're doing it on purpose. It's not accidental on our part.
Let's assume you shot the plane down. This is your big chance to capitalize. Like, you were going to say, all hands on deck, bring the RPGs,
absolutely,
get the fucking lawnmowers, fly them up there, and do as much as...
But again, if it's not 1 lucky hit, considering got 2 planes in the past 24 hours, maybe they really do have an operational S-400 system from Russia. That system is very advanced, very efficient. They did place a bounty on the missing pilot, according to Indian news and Iran. I would expect so, yes. It would be a big propaganda victory to get the pilot. And why wouldn't they? I think that's happened many times before when U.S. planes have been shot down.
As you can, right? It's big day. We got one. And so, of course, that's what they're going to do. Pakistan-led mediation for a U.S.-Iran ceasefire hits a dead end. Yeah, obviously, there shouldn't be a ceasefire. Why would you do a ceasefire?
Why would you do a ceasefire? It's only the global economy that's dying every day the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. Why would you do a ceasefire?
Receiving medical treatment as we speak. But the second pilot is...
President Trump, keep the oil, anyone? Yeah. So transparent. He's just angry this is destroying his political career. That's really what it is. And he's throwing a temper tantrum. And that's why he's hitting Iranian bridges and threatening to hit their the energy, is that he knows this is destroying him politically. And it's like, you see how he doesn't want to surrender to Iran, the nation that's responsible for destroying him politically. Even if it's good for the global economy, that'd be like such a bitter pill. If someone completely fucks him over, he wants to fuck them over back. I mean, and if he's politically finished either way, why not bomb them into the Stone Age? It's probably what he's thinking. And that is probably scaring the living hell out of all those Gulf monarchs that are our allies in the region, because they know if he starts going after Iranian infrastructure, they're finished too.
Is missing, and it's already...
I do think that they will make a mistake if they think that they're going to escalate things with Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is the one that's escalating things. He's the one who attacked a bridge, civilian infrastructure. It was U.S.-Israel who bombed the first desalination plant. It was U.S.-Israel who bombed the first oil facility. It's been U.S. and Israel bombed first bridge, etc. They're the ones who bombed schools. They're the ones who bombed hospitals. It's the U.S.-Israel that's doing the nasty stuff first. And Iran is just reacting with an eye for an eye.
I do. I think that he would have no...
And I can't fault him for that, because it has worked as a deterrent. After we bombed their first desalination plant, and they bombed one in Bahrain, we didn't bomb any more desalination plants until, I think, I don't know if we've done it in the last few days, but at least until, as of yesterday, we hadn't bombed any more desalination plants in Iran.
There would be no inhibitor for him to just continue bombing them.
They have more than enough ammunition. This is short range for them to destroy all the oil infrastructure in here. Does Asmongold understand that? The world economy is fucked if that happens. If all the oil and gas infrastructure in the Gulf gets destroyed. Does he still, a month in, not know that?
Knock out their power grid, do something else that's insane. I think that would be a very big mistake for them. I do. Because, I mean, really, do you really...
Yes, every commentators, including myself, have been saying for weeks, Iran has escalation dominance. They can hurt us far more than we can hurt them. And they've shown this.
Do you actually think that Donald Trump wouldn't do that? I think he obviously would. Drop the big one? I mean...
Why do you think he backed down from that 48-hour threat? Because Gulf nations called and begged him to stop because they knew they were finished. He has all the Gulf states like telling him, don't go after Iranian infrastructure, and screaming at him. They have escalation dominance.
I mean, is there a universe where Donald Trump would use a nuclear bomb? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I do, actually. Like, yeah, I think it's unlikely, but...
Yeah, that's reassuring, isn't it? You don't want this to escalate to nuclear. Russia and China would get involved, and it would get, oh my God, it would get so complicated, so bad. Yeah, they wouldn't be passive anymore. They'd be active in this Iran war.
It's definitely possible.
Dark in Iran right now. That will make it easier for search and rescue operations, but certainly a very risky operation to rescue that first crew member of the F-15E.
But at least it's sad. I was wondering what Asmongold would think if they did use nuclear weapons in this conflict. He didn't seem too bothered by that prospect. That's sad. He does. And one nuclear bomb wouldn't do anything. To take a nation side of Iran that's 4 times the size of Iraq. You'd need commentators talking somewhere between 20 and 50 to make any type of difference. And that would be an absolute disaster for the entire area.
The F-15E, it's important to point out, is
on the table.
a really unique plane that is sort of the warhorse of the Air Force. It can fight not only and take out air-to-ground targets, but also can fight its way in and out of contested airspace.
So I don't know. Is there congressional powers that he would need approval for a nuke, or is it solely up to the president? Well, I have no idea.
He's actually talking about nuke. No, honestly, it's more likely that Israel uses a nuke than Trump. And just because we've seen the pattern throughout the war, all the escalations done by Israel, probably with Trump's blessing. So if Trump decided that a nuke needed to be used, why would he take the political risk of using the nuke? He would let Israel do it. So it's Israel that dropping the nuke in any case, with or maybe without U.S.'s approval. And we haven't reached that state yet. We haven't heard of enough damage in Israel. They're still covering it up. And so if Israel's pretending everything's okay and then out of nowhere they drop a nuke, like the whole world would be like, what the fuck? And it would amplify the blowback against Israel. If the stories start get out about Tel Aviv being nearly leveled like Gaza, and pictures and the entire world knew that Israel was getting fucked over, then at least if they used a nuke, people would still be going panicking, going crazy, but they'd at least understand the reason why.
I mean, I think that there is like a small check system for that, but I think that the real process of that's probably confidential and it's probably very specific.
It's not. I can already tell you, it's not an easy decision. There's if it's against a case of Russia, like if there's they believe Russia's launched nukes against the United States. Yes, it's really fast. The protocol to use nukes, but to use nukes in an offensive way, not a defensive, like in retaliation for a nuclear strike against the United States, that I think there's much more complicated in terms of procedure. And also they just don't have, we don't keep nukes stored around the world or anywhere in the Middle East. Can you imagine if we kept nukes stored at those bases in the Middle East? That'd be a disaster. So you'd have to bring in the nuke. Word of it would leak also. It'd be interesting.
So it's hard to say. And what do you think he'll call it? The little Trump of the nuclear bomb? I don't know, man. Why would Trump use a nuke? He's doing this for the Iranian people.
Yes, that's another thing is why Asmongold was so happy this Iran war happened was for the Iranian people. Help them rise up and overthrow this evil regime. If he's okay with them using a nuke, then fuck Asmongold, because that means all his fake sympathy for the Iranian people was nonsense. Yeah, the underlying problem with Asmongold is that he knows jack shit about the Middle East. Yes, that is the underlying problem. I agree completely.
I mean, again, I didn't say why would he do it? He would do it in order to get them to surrender, right? I mean, that's obviously the reason why.
Yes, but Asmongold, what their whole argument, like the nuclear argument that we can't allow them to have a nuke, is because you're saying they're a reckless country that would use it. What happens to that argument if we nuke them first when they haven't nuked anyone? And if we nuke them with all the civilian casualties that would cause? That our entire, we were trying to get the nuclear material, that argument falls apart. It means Iran should have had a nuke. It was stupid not to have a nuke. That is what the entire world will take from it is, yeah, the United States might nuke you first if you don't have a nuke. Can you imagine that precedent being set? Every country that is any shape thinking about going against the United States' interest will be pursuing nukes. Oh my God, there'll be nuclear proliferation like never seen before. It's interesting watching his views evolved. It's slower than I thought, but it is changing, I think, slightly. Just by osmosis, he is slowly learning reality.
A bridge struck by the U.S. was not used for military purposes, Iran says. Oh, is that?
It was definitely a civilian bridge. It was a bypass to the city of Tehran to reduce traffic. Yes, maybe a military person used it too, but it was like 99% civilian.
Is that right?
This was a bridge right next to the city of Tehran. I mean, good God, it has been gold. On Polymarket, people are betting on April 31st. If he's going to do something on the ground, it's going to be before April 21st. I'd also do that bet because he's moved the troops to the region. They're at risk when they're in the region and not doing anything. They're just sitting targets at whatever base they're hanging out at. So if he's moving troops to the region, he has to use them at some point or send them home. You just can't keep them in a holding pattern. So yes, they're going to be used. And given in the past he's used every military asset he's brought to the region, and he's getting more desperate by the day, unless he's going to accept political suicide for the benefit of Republicans in midterms, even if it costs him his presidency, and surrender to Iran and start negotiating in this position of weakness, which I don't think he's ready to do because he holds grudges, and Tehran is destroying his political future, his legacy as a president. Does he want to give them a win? No. I think he's more bitter. He might want to take them down with him. Unfortunately.
So Trump is talking about just keeping the oil now, too, which is kind of insane.
Okay, first of all, Iran wouldn't hand over the oil. They destroy their oil infrastructure themselves rather than turn it over to the United States. So I've heard reports of them rigging their own oil facilities with explosives just for that scenario. So, no, there's no chance of Trump getting Iranian oil. That's just wishful thinking.
And so Israel is a pawn in political chess.
I mean, the fact that Asmongold doesn't call that out. I mean, if they can easily destroy all these other places around the Gulf, do you think they can't destroy their own oil infrastructure if they want? Let's move on. It wasn't a good day for the U.S. Air Force. That's the takeaway from this. This is an interesting little tidbit here.
That when a military engages in this kind of operation, dealing out death and destruction in this sort of way, it doesn't cause the targeted country to give up or weaken.
Exactly.
Rather, it increases anger. It rallies the population more firmly behind the government. It actually
like that bridge. Even people that are anti-regime, you destroy their bridge, that reduces traffic. That has nothing to do with the regime. It's just an important part of civilian infrastructure. That just pisses everyone off. That makes them hate Israel and the United States.
Stiffens resistance rather than weaken it. And in the case of Iran, I should say that I had a personal demonstration of this yesterday. A very close friend of my wife's, someone who is Iranian and who lives mostly in Britain, but who is in the West.
I do agree that Israel is obviously sabotaging any chance at peace. I read that they recently killed yet another guy that was supposedly communicating with the United States, a retired politician, and they killed him.
And who is a harsh critic of the Iranian political system and government. He has consistently been so. He is firmly secular in his political stances. One of the reasons why he chooses to live in the West is precisely because of his very strong objections to the political system in Iran. Anyway, there was an exchange of messages between him and my wife yesterday. She asked him for information about the safety of his family, who are, by the way, in the city of Tabriz in northern Iran. And he responded, and he was furious. He spoke about the fact that his family were indeed in danger, though thankfully none of them had so far received injury. He spoke about the damage that was being done to their city and to infrastructure right across Iran. I should say that this person, by profession, is an engineer, and he spoke about the damage that has been done to Iran's infrastructure with the kind of knowledge that an engineer has. And his anger, and from his account, the anger of his family, is clearly now directed against the United States and Israel. And this,
as expected,
A man who has chosen to make his life in the West is now trying to find ways to return to Iran, to be with his family. And for the record, knowing quite a lot as I do about him, he is the sort of person who could materially contribute to Iran's war effort if that question were ever to arise. Well, obviously, this is one isolated individual.
The point here is anyone who is still expecting the Iranian people to rise up and overthrow the Iranian regime, that's a pipe dream now. The Iranian people now, given the destruction we've rained down on Iran infrastructure and bombing schools, hospital, bridges, desalination plants, oil infrastructure, they hate us. They're never going to be okay with siding with the forces bombing the country to overthrow the... No, that's not happening.
But I have no reason to think that his opinions and his feelings are not widely shared across Iran today. In fact, there have been any number of articles in the Western media that point exactly in that direction.
Exactly.
And, well, all I would say is that I suspect that those feelings are widely shared across Iran. We are going to see a further consolidation. And
Iran is also putting out effective narratives surrounding very real grievances like Epstein, etc. Yep, killing the guy who wanted to talk to Vance. Yes, that's exactly who they killed, the latest one.
Hardening of attitudes across Iran. It means that if there is some kind of ground operation carried out by the United States over the next days or weeks,
they can't hold our own government accountable, because if you tried to hold one person accountable, he would like whistleblow. You'd like think, well, I'm the least bad of us. These other people in the U.S. government did this. It's 100 times worse than what I did. And then you'd have, it would be a never-ending process that way, and expanding. More and more corruption would come to light. They can't go after a single person. That's the way it works. Ponzi scheme of corruption, basically.
Some reports, and I understand bets, being placed on a ground operation being launched against Iran before the end of April.
Yep, that will probably happen too. Yes, because Trump, I mean, he's either twiddling his thumbs, launching a ground invasion, or surrendering to Iranians, basically, are the choices before Trump. And he's been doing a lot of twiddling his thumbs, but every day the pressure mounts on the world economy, on him politically. And it's just a matter of time before it becomes too much, and he has to try something, anything, to get himself out of this mess. Because he knows he's getting fucked politically, and he's getting killed in the polls and stuff like that.
The Iran war was...
Pete Hegseth in AI Lego slop. Oh, I saw one AI Lego slop out of Iran. It was entertaining. It also used copyright music, which was a problem. So I'm not going to watch more of them right now.
Supposed to blow up the world economy.
The war in Iran has sent the price of oil and natural gas soaring, putting pressure on just about everyone.
Ship traffic has slowed to just a dribble, and the longer it stays disrupted, the more pressure builds across the entire global energy system.
But it's been a month of really severe fighting.
Oh, we already know why it hasn't hit yet. It's because of transit times of ships. But he'll get into that in a second. With a very nice graphic.
A near total shutoff of oil and gas out of the Middle East, and most of the world seems basically fine. Like, you look at your window and what you
Yeah, because governments released oil from the reserve, and also the ships were still on their way.
See is not Mad Max.
The way that video doesn't look like something a theocracy would produce. The AI video? No. There are a lot of people, I think, that are rallying behind the government that aren't theocrats. Now it's not. It's just hatred of U.S. and Israel, and people of Iran coming together, secular and religious.
What you see is more a normal variety bad economy.
Attacking at least 3 ships moving through the Strait of Hormuz. And that translates to prices at the gas pump, now at levels not seen since the start of the war in Ukraine 4 years ago.
So what's going on here? Was the doomsaying all wrong? Are things basically fine? To figure this out,
it's still going to get a lot worse.
We're going to answer the question, what actually happens when the world's largest oil-producing region goes to zero? Like physically, step by step, from the moment the tap turns off, how does that work? How does that ripple down the supply chain to your gas pump, to your grocery store? How long do the lights stay on? How long do planes stay in the air? And look, I will spoil the ending for you. The fine that you see out your window right now is fake. It's a mirage.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care where in the world you are, there is a 100-foot tidal wave rising above your head, and once you see why it's rising and what's going to happen when it hits, you will not be able to miss it.
Yep.
The thing we are talking about has a name, an oil shock, and we are right now in the biggest oil shock in history. Think of it like a bomb that's exploded very far away. We see the flash, but the shock wave hasn't reached us yet.
That's a great analogy. Exactly. We've seen the flash vividly over the last few weeks. The shockwave's coming. It's a tidal wave.
Today we're going to answer what happens when that shockwave hits, what it's going to do, what will change, how it's going to play out, which also means asking why it's taking so long to reach us, why we're in this weird lull right now. As promised, though, we're going to start by tracing what actually happens when the oil spigot goes from on to off. And the first thing you need to know is something that seems simple, seems obvious, but it turns out to be really, really important. This is an oil tanker. And the thing to know about an oil tanker is that it's really, really big.
Big.
4 soccer fields long, carries 2 or 3 million barrels of oil, and it weighs more than a skyscraper.
Look at all those pipes.
All of which makes it slow, 10 or 15 knots. That is, no joke, the speed of a bicycle. Our global energy supply lines move at the speed of a Schwinn. And let me show you on this globe why that's important. If you biked all day, how much of this globe do you think you could cross? Like maybe the width of the point of this pen, right? Maybe. You worked really hard. Okay. Now imagine hopping on your 12 speed, starting in Dubai. Where's Dubai? Here we go. Starting in Dubai. And now imagine that you have to bike out of Dubai, all the way down here, down the coast of Africa, down, cross the Cape of Good Hope, back up the other coast of Africa, all the way across the Atlantic, through the Caribbean, before finally arriving at the deepwater oil port in Louisiana. That would take forever on a bike, right? Which, remember, is the speed that these oil tankers go. Like, that is how our oil travels, as if it were on a bike. And maybe you see where I'm going with this.
This is a great graphic, and it gives the exact dates. April 10th is like Europe. April 1st, so it's already happening in Asia. April 20th for Australia. And Africa, already March 20th to April 1st. So they're already getting hit. United States, April 15th, the last. So we haven't. We still have the shock coming.
This is a map of global oil flows put together by JP Morgan. Don't worry about all this text. We'll explain it in a minute. These red lines show the oil coming out of the Middle East, going out to the rest of the world. This is the...
Well, where I live, we're about to run out of oil reserves in just a few weeks. Can only imagine the panic that'll happen after when that occurs. Exactly. It's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad because this isn't ending anytime soon. I mean, Trump isn't going to surrender to Iran.
It's been cut off. Here it is back in December before the war. There it goes. The oil is flowing. But remember, it moves at the speed of a bunch of bicycles. So now it's January, and the oil is just finally reaching parts of Asia and Europe. And we're into February before it hits the US, and then it hits refineries in South Korea that then sends it on down these pink lines to Australia and New Zealand. So when the war starts and the oil stops flowing, there's actually still a ton out there, taking its long, lazy little bike ride around the globe. That's a big...
Plus, there was a bunch of Russian oil sitting in tankers that looking for a port that got gobbled up too. So it like a month and a half is probably is when it's going to hit after, and we still have 2 weeks before the full impact hits.
Part of why things seem weirdly normal. For most countries, the oil shutdown has not reached us yet. We're still getting shipments that were sent out before the war started. So when do those shipments stop?
What if the U.S. refuses to export refined oil? Well, the problem is, if you look at this, United States, we're taking in oil from the Middle East, and there's a reason for that. There's different types of blends of crude, and certain refineries are made for certain types of blends, like light crude from the Gulf. The refineries process that in California and Texas, and they can't easily, or they can't refine like the thicker blends from Russia, for example. And similarly, so the type of oil we're producing in other regions of the United States that can't be refined in this Texas area. So there's that complication. And there's like they said here, oil is refined here, then gasoline is brought to Australia. It's all interlinked. So if we ban the export of refined products, it would help in some regions of the United States. It would create a glut. But in other regions like Texas that have refineries that depend on this light crude, they're still going to get fucked. It's more complicated than that. Overall, though, yes, putting export restrictions on any type of petroleum product would help the prices domestically, just not evenly throughout the country.
A little bike ride around the globe. That's a big part of why things seem weirdly normal.
Yeah, it'll probably hit Texas and California, because you see that here. So both of those, not as much in the northern United States, though.
Taking its long, lazy little bike ride around the globe. That's a big part of why things seem weirdly normal. For most countries, the oil shutdown has not reached us yet.
It's suicidal. You're targeting Russian refinery and export capacity at this point in time. Yes, it's hurting. It's just making everything worse. But this is Ukraine. What does Ukraine give a fuck about the rest of the world? Tell me, why would Ukraine give a fuck? And Europe, for its part, the European leaders, they are the ones who cut themselves off from Russian gas. And they don't have the best interests of their own people. Germany's deindustrializing at a rapid pace. And so, they're gambling that Trump will be trounced in the midterms and that there'll be more support from Ukraine after the midterms. And they're just trying to keep the Ukraine project going at all cost. And part of that cost was hit Russia's oil export in business right now, so they have a little bit less money. So situation is a little bit less bad in Ukraine, so they can hopefully survive and not lose Ukraine before the U.S. midterms. That is the strategy right now. That is why, to the extent that Europe is cooperating with all these drones attacks on Russian energy infrastructure, it's because they're absolutely desperate for this Ukraine project. The corrupt EU politicians that are controlled by deep state are desperate to keep your Ukraine going.
We're still getting shipments that were sent out before the war started. So when do those shipments stop? If you look at that map again, it says most deliveries to the US will stop around April 15th. In Europe, they stop around April 10th. Asia, April 1st, so it's just getting started. But here in parts of Africa, there's March 20th. We're already well into it. And to be clear, these places aren't out of oil. Every country has emergency stockpiles. So let's see what that looks like. Gas lines are the first thing to show up. Not enough fuel at the pump. And these are already everywhere. South Africa, Pakistan, Vietnam, a bunch of places. In Laos, they ordered schools closed for 1 day a week so there'd be fewer people on the roads. The Philippines and Ethiopia did the same thing for government offices. And Sri Lanka is making...
Thing is, all these measures to fewer people on the road, so they can't drive certain day, people end up driving more other days. So yes, it does help a little bit, but if someone has to make a trip somewhere, if they can't do it one day, they're still going to do it the next day. So you need prices to go up still a lot more for real demand destruction to set in.
Everybody take every Wednesday off of work now. There are also restaurant curfews, mass flight cancellations, air conditioning shutoffs. It's not that these countries are running out of oil. I mean, they are, but that's not the real issue exactly. Imagine this is the global oil supply.
Isn't that a satisfying sound when the barrels drop?
It's all sold in one big market. And that means all the producers sell to that same global supply. And then all the oil-consuming countries buy from that same supply.
Exactly.
You could also call these exporters and importers. It's the same idea. Anyway, the Iran war cut off 1/5 of global supply, about this much. So when delivery stops showing...
25% of the world's gas and 35% of the world's fertilizer. Don't forget those two. Those are really important. Also helium. Like Taiwan depends on helium to making all types of computer chips. And you're going to have prices spike in... for hardware, for electronic hardware and computers because of that.
Showing up at those countries we talked about, they can't actually buy from other producers, but they've got to do it by outbidding whoever would have bought that oil otherwise. And that pushes up the price for everyone.
And for everyone to work from home again. Well, I already work from home. I already use very little gas, so yay!
And that's even hitting places like the US, where we are still receiving oil from before the war started. Countries whose shipments ran out are creating this big surge in demand. So anytime you go to the pump or pay your power bill, you are bidding against them and they are bidding against you. And all of this is going to get significantly worse when China and Europe start running out of shipments too and surge demand to replace it, which is really close to happening. But all of this raises a question. If these shortages are just days or weeks from reaching everywhere, then why are we on a lull? Every government in the world can see that same map that I showed you earlier. They know catastrophe is bicycling
the derivative market. The U.S. financial system cannot afford to have a drastic, sharp rise in oil prices, so they're purposefully keeping them down by pretending the conflict in Iran will end really soon. Trump says, like, he's still saying 2-3 weeks from now. That's already an extension of his timetable, but he's still saying it's the negotiating, it's about to be solved.
Their way. So why doesn't it feel like it? This is Trump a couple of weeks into the war.
Sir, could you foresee a deal in Iran this upcoming week?
I do see a deal in Iran. Could be soon.
When he said this, the price of oil dropped right away. War's ending, right?
Yeah, the war's ending. Yeah, there won't be a problem. I mean, if the war ended now, right now, yes, oil prices would just probably stay up at 100 for quite a bit because they still need to replenish his reserves. If the war ended now, also, countries would empty their oil reserves a lot faster, like U.S. Strategic Reserve, because they know the oil is coming. They know there's more ships coming, and they can then restock the oil later. So oil prices probably stay around 100 for 6 months and then slowly drift down. If the war ended right now, it's 6 months, maybe a little bit more, because depending on how much damage there is to the oil infrastructure in the Gulf, but still it wouldn't not spike up too much. But if the war goes on another 6 months,
everything back to normal. Except he'd been saying the same thing for weeks.
We have had very, very strong talks. We'll see where they lead. We have major points of agreement. I would say almost all points of
agreement. Who are you talking to, though?
Agreement.
Iran has said that there are no talks, and Trump is making it all up.
Iran's foreign ministry says you're not telling the truth when it comes to productive conversations to end the war.
They're going to have to get themselves better public relations people.
He's been doing a ton of this. Like a few days earlier, he'd post that the U.S. was very close to meeting its objectives in the war and might soon start winding down. So why does he keep doing this? Well, to understand, go back to that graphic of the global oil market. We left something out before. A lot of oil gets bought up by speculators who sell it secondhand. This all takes place through something called an oil future. It sounds scummy, but it actually serves a pretty useful...
It serves a useful purpose. Like if we know there's going to be a shortage of oil, speculators buy a lot of it. It puts prices up now and reduces consumption, and so there's less of a crunch later. It's useful.
Function in stabilizing prices. It doesn't matter how it works. The point is, those speculators set their price by what they think oil will cost in the future, which means if Trump comes along and says peace in our time, speculators conclude prices will drop and sell their oil futures for cheap, which helps to balance the price rise in the regular market. That's part of the lull. Even though Econ 101 says oil prices...
And that's why futures market for oil are in backwardization. That means the future price of oil is less than the current price of oil. And that means there's severe immediate spot price, severe shortages in the actual market. But the futures are lower than that. It always happens whenever there's a drastic physical shortage of something.
They should be going up way more than they have, like crisis level $6-7 a gallon territory. All of this market manipulation is tamping those prices down. But that sounds good, right? Except that it means that the global economy is consuming oil and gas as if they were still priced and flowing normally. It's like if your city were running out of water and everybody in town decided to take 2 showers a day. And there's another thing propping up this weird artificial lull that we're in.
IEA countries have unanimously decided to launch the largest ever release of emergency
exactly
in our agency's history.
Remember earlier when I said that all countries keep oil stockpiles? Well, a bunch of those countries got together recently and agreed to sell off 400 million barrels from their reserves. That's like if 200 of those oil...
Okay, let me add that. At Discord for a new command. We do have a Discord. Right now you have to click the link on the Twitch page. So if you look below, there's a Discord and you can get there that way. Sorry about that. I'll add that as something to do. Let me move that actually down here. Okay, good.
Oil supertankers suddenly materialized out of the Bermuda Triangle all at once. And then on top of that, the U.S. also agreed to allow Russia, and this is kind of hard to believe, Iran, to sell off some of their sanctions.
Yeah, underneath my head, right there, Discord. Mm-hmm. I need to work on my
Releasing
Discord
its
server,
stockpiles
but
has added oil to the market.
I'm happy the more people join. It's more incentive to start really getting on top of that. I'll try to do something on that after stream today for sure.
Equivalent to about half of what was cut off by the war, which has helped to balance out supply and prices and all of that. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. The stockpile release and those speculator games, these are both one-off tricks. They only work for a few weeks, and when they're used up, they're gone.
Sadek Zero.
It does it even for me.
Oh man, that artificial lull that we have been holding up, it is going to come crashing to an end just as those last shipments of Middle Eastern oil dry up.
The final vessel carrying jet fuel into the United Kingdom is going to get here in 48 hours, and there's no more after that.
So when that oil shock hits, it is going to hit us all at once. Okay, so now we understand what that oil shock is, how it's going to get here, how it's forming. What is it going to look like? When people picture this, they tend to talk about it in terms of rising prices. $200 barrel oil, $8 a gallon at the pump, $1,000 domestic flights. But this misses something much larger and much more consequential that is already starting to happen. To understand what that is, imagine if, instead of talking about energy supplies, we were talking about food. Now, if I told you that 1 or 2% of the world's food supply was going offline, you'd probably worry. You might expect to see food prices go up.
Oh, it's a lot more than that with all the fertilizer that's not flowing right now. We saw that graphic from India about all the places that have fertilizer producing plants that have shut down because of lack of oil.
Some hardships on the margin, but you would think it's basically survivable. But now if I told you the world had already lost 20% of its food supply, you would think, well, we're about to have fewer people on Earth. The name for this is demand destruction. It's when the supply of something drops so severely that whoever or whatever relies on it, the demand.
That's next year. The food shortage crisis, spike in prices happens next year. After, fall harvest season, and then we have the short supply of crops, and this fall prices start rising.
Permanently withers away. And that is what is going to happen to any global economic activity that uses energy, which is like almost all of it. Factories, technological development and production, car and airplane travel, air conditioning, building homes or cities. I'm not saying that those things are going to go away, but there is going to be a lot less of them, like about 20% less once things really bottom out.
The economic shocks caused by this war will be with us for months.
How we emerge from this crisis will define us for a generation.
Let me give you a few specifics that are already starting to manifest. Airlines say they cannot afford to operate and are shutting down many of their flights, so it'll be harder to explore the world. European governments are telling their citizens not to travel for vacation this summer. There's just not enough fuel for it. A number of factories are already closing worldwide, especially in Asia. Semiconductor factories in particular are closing, both for lack of power and because semiconductors use helium, which is a byproduct.
Pain from this oil shock is going to hit right in time for the midterms. Trump is so fucked.
Product of natural gas production, so is also going away. Importers expected to become prohibitively expensive to ship some things abroad, so we'll have fewer foreign goods, less off-season produce, and we'll export less too, so fewer jobs. Construction supplies like lumber are getting too expensive to harvest or import, which means fewer homes getting built, which means existing homes getting more expensive and harder to afford. Many of the essential components to fertilizer also come through the Persian Gulf. Things like phosphorus.
Good of him to mention
fertilizer
that.
shortages in Asia, so yeah.
And China has its strategic fertilizer reserve that they've tapped. I still can't believe they have that.
There will also be less food in the world. All of these things also contribute to inflation. Prices go up, harder to afford things, our standard of living goes down. And the thing is, even if the war ends today, this process, this demand destruction, is actually going to continue. That's because American, Israeli, and Iranian missiles have left much of the region's energy infrastructure in ruins. Things like refineries, gas terminals that will take years to rebuild, which means years before that oil and gas comes back online. This winter is probably going to bring the first big wave of hardship. Right now, spring and summer...
in Europe, it's going to be bad. Because right now, they've had a cold winter, and their natural gas reserves of Europe are way below where they're supposed to be. And now they've lost the 25% of natural gas that they got from Qatar. And they've cut themselves off from Russian gas. And U.S. gas natural gas is going to be export restricted soon. Because of, so they're, oh my God, they are absolutely completely fucked next winter, Europe.
Summer is a time of year when countries are usually stockpiling oil and gas so that they can get their people through the cold months. But instead, those countries are burning their stockpiles down to zero. That means December and January are likely to bring a whole new oil shock when 1 billion people across Europe, Asia, and North America go to turn on their winter stoves or heaters and find that there is not enough gas to go around. Now look, I'm not saying all this because I want to scare you, and we are not on the verge of some great collapse. I promise you that Mad Max is going to remain a thing that you watch just on...
No, it's just going to be extraordinarily painful. And unfortunately, when he's saying it's not going to be Mad Max, he's just looking at the oil shock. Given the health of the U.S. economy and global economy, this is a good chance this triggers a recession and another financial crisis next year. And so we'll have that on top of, we're going to have stagflation.
...on your TV and not out your window. And I'm telling you all this because the architects of this war want you to believe that the way things...
Oh yeah, canceling nuclear power plants is going to be, in retrospect, an incredibly stupid decision. Because that's... uranium is the one thing that doesn't come from the Gulf, and whose prices won't skyrocket. And speaking of that, smart decisions, China also burns a ton of coal. And you know what's doesn't come from the Gulf? Coal. So they're going to be more insulated from this. Not completely, though, because coal prices have spiked too, because everywhere across the world is going to be burning more coal due to the oil shortage.
Things are right now, today. But that's the worst of it. That we just have to ride out a few weeks of high gas prices, and we're going to come out the other side of this war basically unscathed. But what's happening...
Well, that depends. If you had a ceasefire today, yes, there would still be a lot of pain, but nowhere near what's coming, though.
Right now is a trick. This lull it's fake. It's hiding the real consequences of this war, which are coming. The people in Iran and in...
We may have a lot of power from coal and our own natural gas, but a lot of our coal plants are getting shut down or were shut down, and you can't instantly put them back online. Well, in case they're demolished and repurposed. So, if we were smart, we'd be doing everything we can to put every coal power plant back online right now in the United States. But I guarantee you environmentalists aren't allowing that.
Neighboring countries who go to sleep under falling bombs are already living under this war. The thing is that I'm not saying it's the same, but pretty soon we are going to be living the consequences of this war too.
Agreed. And it's first real shock is in 2 weeks for the United States. So like April 15th, the last shipment of oil from the Gulf. And it'll hit hardest in Texas and California. And really California, because they already have extraordinarily high gas prices to begin with because of their mismanagement of their economy.
And trained on the battlefield. You talked about the...
This is video about the humiliating course correction needed. That means if Trump really cared about the global economy or whatever, what he would be doing.
Logic that was put before the president that why we shouldn't do ground operations. Apparently that has already postponed it, but it should have canceled it outright. But instead, I worry that it may not have, and here's why. Because even after President Trump yesterday put out that True Social about bragging about the bridge bombing.
We shut down most of our geothermal plants in our country, all for sake of feeding petroleum companies. Yeah. A lot of stupid things have been done, a lot of places around the world. Specifically in Europe and United States. Except for China and Russia, there's more common sense there. Except they were Russia in case they were dragged into a war they didn't want to fight.
I mean, later that night, he put out another one. Our military, the greatest and most powerful by far anywhere in the world, hasn't even started destroying what's left in Iran. Bridges next, then electric power plants. New regime leadership knows what has to be.
That's him throwing a temper tantrum.
Done, and it has to be done fast. Trump says. Then this morning, he said, with a little more time, we can easily open the Hormuz Strait, take the oil, and make a fortune. It would be a gusher for the world.
God, that oozes so much wishful thinking. Take the oil? You think Iran would give the oil? Give up their oil?
I mean, that's again talking about stealing the resources of another country. That doesn't sound like even we're asking you to make a deal. It sounds more like we want you to completely surrender. And apparently, I haven't even started bombing anything. How do you interpret that?
Yeah, basically the president's operating out of the Don Corleone book of coercion and intimidation and thinks he's running a mob family, which might explain why so many people connected to him are getting fabulously rich using the U.S. Treasury and U.S. power for personal self-enrichment. I mean, the man's building a life.
Yeah. You didn't hear stories about people connected to Trump getting insanely rich during his first term. And I think he might have somewhat succumbed to the Washington swamp mentality in the second term, if not personally, at least those around him. And that's why they have so much more control over him, and why his foreign policy is basically indistinguishable from another deep state president at this point.
Library, where he's got a 50-foot gold statue that is modeled after the one of Kim Jong-un in North Korea. I mean, this is a level of insanity, moral insanity, that is incredibly...
Trump always did stuff like that, like ego stuff, like put his name on stuff, and I just roll my eyes normally when he does that, like the Kennedy Trump Center or something like that. Yeah, but that was when he was trying, at least during his first term, at least trying to do the right thing, even if he was failing, because every part of the deep establishment was against him. This second time, yeah, this Iran war and the economic pain it's going to cause, and just the disaster, and just not ending the Ukraine war. Yeah, I'm a lot less amused when he talks about his ballroom.
Really dangerous to the country and the world. So what he's talking about there is bragging about more war crimes. Was the oil of Iran an imminent threat to the United States? Well, what's the grounds to seize it legally or morally? There isn't. And so all of this will be used in a future impeachment of him that's coming within probably 8 to 9 months.
Yep, because Democrats are going to win the midterms because Trump won this, started the stupid war. If he hadn't started the stupid war, there's a good chance Republicans could have held on during the midterms. And he wouldn't have spent his second half of his term fighting impeachment. And this time it's going to be a losing impeachment battles because he's given them valid reasons to impeach him with this war.
And impeachment of a whole bunch of people in the staff. And the question is, how many people want to go down with that ship? Because Trump's ship is going down. That is a guarantee. The only question is, will the whole country go down with him? How many members of the military will go down with him? How many members of the cabinet will go down with him? Credit to Joe Kent for taking the noble and courageous stand he did.
That is correct at some point. Yeah, a lot of people are going to go down with Trump, and deservedly so. Whoever told him this would be over in 3 days deserves to go down with Trump 100%. I'd even go after them even more. Maybe all those data centers are getting attacked at the moment. Well, yeah, we could definitely check on that. Yeah, IRC claims to have attacked a Dubai Oracle data center. U.S. fighter jets, yeah. Oracle data center attacked also. AWS data center in Bahrain. There's fire there, so that's attacked. Oracle in Dubai, Amazon center in Bahrain. Yep, they're going after them.
But it was also well timed because there's no way people like Kent would want to have anything to do with this disastrous war.
Yep.
Not only from a geopolitical
Oracle attack
perspective, an economic perspective, and domestic political perspective, though it is all three of those, but just morally horrific perspective to be bragging about trying to destroy a people, a community, and a country. And of course, last but not least, it ain't going to work. This is the Persians. They've been there 6,000 plus years, as their parliament of their speakers said yesterday. That
what I was saying before. Yes, anyone who was selling Trump the idea that this was going to be over in 3 days, I'm totally fine with them being impeached too. They fucked over not only Trump but the entire global economy.
We've been through this before. We've been here a long time. That you want to meet the whole family, come on in. And it's clear that's what they're waiting for and eager to do, to prove that the Persians are going nowhere. That they're like the Russians. A Russian once told me, Barnes, we would rather eat dirt than surrender. Trump thinks if he escalates the threats, that they will just capitulate. That they're like that local store owner that keeps being told, if you don't pay the skim, we're going to come in and beat the heck out of you, and then we're going to beat the heck out of your family, and then we're going to burn your whole building down. And that store owner's like, you don't understand who I am. I don't care if you do that. As long as I'm living, I'm fighting. And so Trump has refused to recognize this. He deluded himself into believing something that was a vile fantasy from the inception.
Well, as it becomes clear to the entire U.S. public, and that probably happened maybe with a ground invasion that's going to go disastrously wrong, or some other event, that this Iran war is not going as planned, or it could be two weeks from now when the real shock hits the United States, when those last tankers arrive. Either way, we're going to start getting more leaks on how we got into this blasted war, and it'll be interesting. We'll learn part of the truth through leaks long before there'll be accountability.
And origination, and he's not going to get any deal done. He knows he's not going to get any deal done. Our intelligence community, as has been publicly reported, told him this week there is no chance of such a deal being done by this regime, and there's no chance this regime collapses.
Exactly.
That means he needs to go. He needs to exit with some honor, let J.D. Vance run the negotiations, pull our troops out now, and ultimately agree to something that's on Iran's terms. Otherwise, the world.
That's political suicide for Trump. Imagine Asmongold's reaction if Trump did this, if he basically surrendered to Iran. How do you think Asmongold would react? And the way Asmongold would react is the way any average Trump supporter would react. He would not be pretty. He would be like, this Iran war was a fucking disaster.
The world will burn. But one thing is for sure, Trump was prescient when he said when he dies, he ain't going to heaven.
Yeah, well, I think that's the case.
Well, Pam Bondi was fired, and we're going to get new Justice Department official, and maybe they'll be better on the Epstein files. We'll have to see about that.
Mentioned the Iranian response that they're not going to do this stuff. The Foreign Minister Arakchi has responded to this bombing of the bridge there and saying exactly what you might expect. In addition to Galibaf, which you mentioned a second ago, he writes that striking civilian structures, including unfinished bridges, will not compel Iranians to surrender. It only conveys the defeat and moral collapse of an enemy in disarray. Every bridge and building will be built back stronger. What will never recover damage to America's standing. I mean, you on the one hand, you can say, okay, well, he's the enemy of the United States, so of course he's going to.
That was very eloquent. Good statement.
Say that stuff. But let me ask you, what do you think that people that are not Iran or America around the rest of the world, how are they going to view his comments there?
It's extraordinary how damaging this war has been to America, public opinion of America in the global South.
Oh, yeah.
To pretty much, well, frankly, including large parts of the American public. But the global South is almost, you took Iran for being a political pariah pretty much outside the Shia world. That if you look outside the Shia world, I mean, this is how you could know Iran's regime wasn't going to collapse. If you looked at the opinion of the Shia in Lebanon, the Shia in Bahrain, the Shia in Iraq, the Shia in Afghanistan or Pakistan, you universally found wherever Shia were, Shia in the United States, they had a favorable or at least not unduly unfavorable opinion of the Iranian regime. But they were the only ones. Most of the Sunni Islamic world despised Iran, and almost everybody else in the whole rest of the world despised Iran. That is changing and changing rapidly.
Yeah, well, people like the underdog, and Iran is... He's doing far better than anyone expected. Anyone who has grievances against the United States gotta respect them hitting the U.S. so hard.
We are making them into the little underdog against this behemoth Goliath that is so morally depraved that it...
Yeah, you have people like Asmongold talk about using nukes against Iran.
Is the one that is originating and initiating not only a war of aggression, an unnecessary war of aggression, but that is engaging in daily moral horrors that shock the conscience of any decent person anywhere in the world. And
the one reason why Asmongold is more open to nukes is that he's still propagandized about how evil the Iranian regime is. He still believes they're like the biggest funder of terrorism, which I'm not going to go over again why that isn't the case, but I've made videos about it. They're not the biggest. Hamas was funded by Israel and Qatar. The ISIS, which genocided Christians in Syria, was funded by CIA and Mossad. So, yeah, they're not the biggest source of terrorism. And, again, he doesn't know that the United States, crashed Iranian currency, and he's calling this out-of-control inflation that one of his viewers sent him a video about. So, he just... he has incredibly thinks the Iranian regime is like the peak of all evil, and so that's why he's less bothered by the concept of dropping a nuke on them. Although that would kill a lot of innocent Iranians that he supposedly wanted this war for.
And so it's going only to improve them, and you get a sense of this. It's why the Emiratis and the Kuwaitis and the Saudis can't publicly admit that they lobbied heavily as Israel did, for this war.
Yeah.
They were actually in Trump's ear all the time. The public reports.
Well, I wonder how much of the copium and the wishful thinking about the Iranian regime collapsing those Persian Gulf states had.
That have come out about them constantly encouraging him are absolutely right. Now, this is what happens when you have a bunch of Epstein class members.
Exactly. They are Epstein class members. They are deep state. They are, absolutely creatures of the Epstein class, and they were doing what the deep state wanted.
Because people know about the Israeli ties to the Epstein class and the Trump billionaire donor ties to the Epstein class and the European royals ties to the Epstein class. They underappreciate MBS from Saudi Arabia.
Oh, I noticed that. I noticed his emails thanking like Epstein for the torture video and stuff like that.
It was close friends with Jeffrey Epstein. that there are UAE high officials who are joking about how wonderful the torture videos were with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
So that's who these people are. They're disconnected from a certain reality. They thought if Iran was taken out, then their Dubai, Monaco of the Mideast paradise would come true. And it turns out Dubai is the Monaco of the Mideast is a mirage that is going to collapse under this very conflict. Marina emptying out, penthouses can't be sold. Its whole future.
People who watch Alex Jones sound sane now because of this shit. Yeah, Alex Jones, I have mixed feelings to it. On the one hand, I'm definitely against deep state, and they definitely targeted him, and that's proof he's a thorn in their side. But on the other hand, he does talk about aliens, and he does. He makes things more sensational than they have to be. He exaggerates some of the like harvesting organs from live babies, and there's no proof for. And yeah, they were harvesting organs from aborted babies, not live babies. It's a distinction, but an important one.
Based on expats filling it up are now trying to exit out. And so they're even more desperate than ever before that Trump take out Iran. That's why they don't want a deal done. They want Iran to have to capitulate with.
Yeah, you saw a video once about the harvesting organs from babies from a Chinese citizen who was exploring abandoned buildings. He found a pit. Oh, I don't want to know. Full of bodies. Yeah. Well, from what I understand, the whole organ harvesting thing, they would take the aborted babies and then they'd put it in an incubator until it was fully grown and then harvest the organs. So yes, it would be a fully grown baby, but not naturally born. That's sort of the distinction type thing. And it's still terrible. But my general thing is go after the 100% it's true stuff. Like when you have an email in the Epstein files about pizza party in a torture chamber and have the guy talking about that, go after that guy first. The extra stuff, the beef jerky stuff in the Epstein files, yeah, maybe look into that later, but go after the stuff that's easy for everyone to understand. And Alex Jones doesn't do that. He goes after hyper focuses on the wildest parts that have the least proof behind it, and that makes, I think, things harder.
Without a deal, with a deal, they are still at risk. They are still at danger. Nobody's going to invest in Saudi tourism. Nobody's going to invest in Emirati expats. But why haven't they gone public and gone more full all in publicly? Because their own audiences, their own communities, their own constituencies in their own countries disapprove of this war. And they fear that they would get their own Arab Spring if they were to publicly celebrate or join in the war. Thus, they run a feint of pretending they're.
That's one reason. Yes, one powerful reason. Another reason is it would amplify Iranian attacks on their oil infrastructure and their other infrastructure if they joined the war officially. That is, it would make them a much bigger target. So that's why they do this thing of just letting U.S. operate from their air bases, but don't officially join the war themselves.
Their bases are not being used when they are on a daily basis. So that's the other factor here. And then you go into one of the places that the president is considering going into. It's that southeastern part of Afghanistan that overlaps with, I think it's called Baluchistan in Pakistan. Now, you could arm that group. They're a bunch of Sunni Muslims that are, powerful resistance fighters in the past. They come.
Yeah. But yeah, like I said, all that stuff like Bohemian Groves and whatever, I think that's different parts of the overall U.S. Ponzi scheme. I think the core of it is, like I said, Treasury's ESF. That's where it all originates from. The desire, that's where, for example, Kennedy assassination, the records of financing, how that was financed, Iran-Contra, the horrible shit we did then, everything is buried there. And so the overall thing is to keep the U.S. financial system going, keep the dollar hegemony going. And outside of that, there is things like this whole Israel Zionist lobby. That's one group. Then you have the Epstein, the child pizza group. There's overlap between them. And then there is like the neocons. There's another group that's, each one of those are groups. It's not because the Ponzi scheme, like Madoff Ponzi scheme that happened during 2008 financial crisis that was revealed there. The auditor of the Ponzi scheme, Madoff's auditor, was involved. He knew there was fraud. He just didn't know it was a Ponzi scheme. They can't tell people that are involved, that are helping them keep this dollar hegemony going, that they're involved in something that's doomed to collapse 100% at some point in the future. That's not a very attractive proposal. So the core group that's involved in the financial rigging of the markets and propping up like financial markets with derivatives and market manipulation, all that, it's a really small group. And you tell people that they're involved in a satanic cult, in the Illuminati, in a new world order, and stuff like that. They're going to be part of the elites, private. That's what's sold to people. But the reality is that's not what's going on. They're part of a doomed empire that's falling, and their heads will roll when that happens.
I'm from a mountainous region of the country, great history of art and poetry and singing and the like. Great food too. But so
I'm not saying all the horrible stuff and satanic rituals. I'm sure there's some of that's actually happening, and that's one way groups are being organized in the deep state. But it's not the real thing. The real thing is the center is at the U.S. Treasury in the Exchange Stabilization Fund that runs the CIA's black budget and is basically rigging our financial system at this point with derivatives.
They've long been isolated from the Iranian regime. The problem is they hated the Shah more than they hate the current Ayatollah's regime. And the second problem is Pakistan, nuclear armed Pakistan, going to be all excited about us arming the Baluchis in that region when it's immediately going to bleed over into the Baluchistan that has a lot of the mineral wealth of Pakistan that would love to rebel against the Pakistani regime. It also overlaps in Afghanistan. So these are all. Then you have a potential possibility in Bahrain of a uprising there that could overthrow the government. What happens if the Iraqi?
Yeah, so there is always at any point in this Iran war the possibility of uprising in these U.S. puppet states in the Gulf. That is one danger that could at any time happen and make things more hectic in the Middle East.
The Shia militias decide to repeat Saddam Hussein and go into Kuwait. What if they unite with the Shia part of eastern Saudi Arabia, which is where all of Saudi Arabia's assets are held? And sort of, you look at a map of the Shia of Iraq, and you'll see it overlaps with over half of the natural resources of Saudi Arabia with Saudi Arabia. So you could have a true Shia crescent that could surround the entire Persian Gulf. And it's called the Persian Gulf for a reason. So there's only one way out of this. It's a negotiated disposition and an accepted some degree of humiliation. But we have an ego-driven mad president that's unwilling and unable to do that.
And let's just look at some of the consequences of this right now. This you mentioned a second ago.
Yeah, there are all these claims of mind control or whatever. There is cult behavior, and that much I believe in. You can see that on the left in the United States, for example, and the media and all that. But actual mind control, if they had something like that, there'd be evidence. They wouldn't be losing control like they are today in so many ways if they had something as useful as actual mind control. So, yeah, they tried. MK Ultra was a real CIA program. They really wanted to be able to mind control people, but yeah, it was a failure. You can't mind control. You can propagandize them a lot, like Asmongold's propagandized, but you can lie to them and deceive them. You can't mind control them.
Beautifully described what the inside the region looks like and how there's a lot of unsolvable problems there. Outside the region, there's additional problems with this. I mean, the oil is one thing, the price of gas and natural gas and oil, et cetera, but there's also a burgeoning food crisis emerging in India. I could have put the same thing up here for South Korea, for Vietnam, for the...
Oh, yeah, there's victims of MK Ultra in Canada that are actively seeking compensation. Well, yes, people they tried to mind control, they used all types of drugs on them that fucked up their bodies long term. So yeah, of course, they'd want a compensation. Though it's been a while now, so I think a lot of them probably dead.
The Philippines here, then diplomatically even. I mean, this one really got my attention here. Have you ever seen Russia, China, and France veto a UN Security Council resolution because they opposed the U.S. desire to use force? Actually, this came from, I think it was Bahrain. yeah, it came from one of the Arab countries to say, hey, let's use force at the UN Security Council to authorize military action to open. And France itself said, yeah, we're not going to do that. In fact, Gary, if you can play that video, this is what.
But that's interesting because it means UK didn't veto it. So, yep.
Emmanuel Macron said as to why France was opposed.
Iran is a very bad regime. No discussion about that. I disagree with them on a lot of topics. But I don't believe that we will fix the situation just by bombings or by military operations.
You won't. I agree with that.
Look at what happened with this type of operation in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya. We never delivered. Never. Even after 20 years. So you have to respect the sovereignty of people.
Macron speaking common sense. Oh, what a day.
If people want to change a regime, they want to react, step up, they can do so.
Well, that's pretty obvious and pretty amazing, though, for France to join with Russia and China in the UN Security Council. And then I'll add one more to it here. The UK led 40 nations to try to figure out what can we do to stop Iran from holding the world hostage in Hormuz, and it did not include the United States. We are left out of that. What do you make of this external situation where people are just bypassing us in one place or outright pushing back on us at the UN Security Council?
Well, you know, it's good to see people figure out that certain wars are a disaster. It would have been nice if the French would have figured that out before Libya and before Syria. It would have been nice if they figured that out.
Trump has done a good job of burning so many bridges during his second term. And, okay, let's be fair. As to one reason we got into this, and Trump's first term, he was tried to play by the rules. And that's why he didn't get anything done a lot of time. He got people that were recommended by the deep state as his advisors and like for Justice Department and everything like that. And yeah, it didn't work. Then there was that 4-year period where they used every type of lawfare to go after him, even his lawyers, all his assets. And I think, experience made him Asmongold, fuck the law. Fuck. If the law is just going to be used to attack me and unfairly, then fuck it. And so he just has no respect for institutions. That's why he's trying to shut down the Department of Education. He's just going scorched earth against the deep state and it's dissecting. But that also extended to international organizations like the UN. And one good thing is he ripped up our agreement on climate control. That was a good thing. That was. That besides like small benefits like that, the problem is, the whole international order, international law and UN is also designed to prevent World War III and some stuff that really we don't want to have happen. And there was still, besides the deep state, there are good people in U.S. government still that, do analysis and could warn Trump about stuff like closure of Strait of Hormuz. Problem is he's lost faith in those people. So he was going by his outsiders, his Gulf buddies, instead of, career bureaucrats in the Defense Department or the War Department now. And the cost of that is he fumbled into this Iran war because he stopped relying on any of the normal guides to behavior and just doing whatever he felt was right. And in this case, in case of Iran, with a bunch of deception, yes, people were lying to him about it taking 3 days, but his fundamental lack of respect for the law and for institutions, which Democrats are entirely to blame for with the way they went after him and convict him of all those, how many was 43 felonies for something his lawyer did without his knowledge for one bribe that he didn't know about, and they somehow turned that into 43 felonies. No, it's absurd. And that shaped his views, and I think his lack of respect for, the government and bureaucrats, and that contributed to him being deceived into this war. I'm sure of it.
Out right now in Ukraine. That's not a winnable war for Ukraine. But I can give you the historical chronological sequence here. Macron talked to the Iranian president yesterday or the day before, and what was not publicly reported is that he agreed to block any UN action and give cover to China and Russia from within Europe as to using military options to open the strait. And in exchange, as is now coming out, of the Straits of Hormuz, ships heading to France are now being allowed to pay the toll and they go to France.
And what I mean about lack of respect for institutions and world order, I mean, like his trying to get Greenland is an example of that. He wouldn't do something like that the first term. He was still trying to sort of abide by the norms, like norms is a better word, the norms of the statecraft and international relations. He was abiding more by those in his first term. His second term, because of what he experienced and all the lawfare against him, he just didn't respect norms anymore. He's had something much closer to Asmongold's opinion, which says if something is law is bad, then fuck it. And his lack of respect for norms is a big part, I think, why Israel saw this opportunity to trick him into this war, and the deep state also both trick him into this war.
So that was effective.
Did not see
was
that.
The real deal that took place. But I mean, it turns out the hardliners were always right. What we underappreciated is that we not only had more moderate elements within the last Ayatollah's regime, but we also had more naive elements.
Some stuff like the seed vault and there's stuff like that, like FEMA's, there's stories going around about how they have all these caskets, like why does FEMA have hundreds of thousands of caskets to bury people, and stories. Yeah, I think it's just, don't worry about that. You have, it's not, or like one time I was really worried about why the IRS was getting buying millions of bullets. That was before Trump was elected. And after Trump was elected, at least having a non-deep state president was such a relief, at least in terms of stories like that, because it made the presidency couldn't be leveraged to go after ordinary people in the same way if you have a non-deep state president. And that threat is mostly gone. So I wouldn't, and that threat is, because you have to understand, the people involved in this U.S. Ponzi scheme, yes, they're trying to keep it going, but they're also trying to look for an exit strategy. So maybe some way that when there's the collapse of the U.S. financial system, they never get held to account. And maybe somehow turning the U.S. into an authoritarian regime that even people that get fucked over when the financial system collapses, they can never demand justice because the United States stops being a democracy. That type of scenario. That, I think, died after Trump was elected because it's there's too much non-established politicians now as a result of Trump's whole movement. The good part of the Republican Party is no longer deep state. There's still a lot of them, but I'm much less concerned about that these days. It's I don't think they're going to have an off-ramp. Their only choice is to try to keep the U.S. financial Ponzi scheme going for as long as they can. There's no way they're going to be able to seize power undemocratically in the event of a collapse to avoid facing justice for their crimes.
Elements. People that were idealistic about being able to negotiate with the West, people who really didn't like to escalate.
Yeah, stuff like digital IDs and there are all these plans that attempts to sort of put into effect an authoritarian state that they can use to control people. That is, and that's why they keep on going after our guns so aggressively, is because it terrifies them that U.S. public has all these guns. Yeah, but at this point, after Trump was elected, I don't think they have a viable off-ramp that way. There's no way they can transition United States into some dystopian 1984 type society where even if financial system completely collapses, they can avoid any accountability for that.
In overt military means. And this new regime, where they grew up and was tutored and trained on the battlefields of the Iran-Iraq war, where they saw their friends and fellow soldiers literally martyr themselves in the early stages of that conflict because all they had was human waves as defenses. Long said, no, we should use the power we have. We should leverage access to the straits and not only 20% of the world's oil and natural gas, but also, to its various forms of its fertilizers, to helium, a critical product in all semiconductors and chips. Yep. And those things in turn go into plastic.
If you're thinking about buying a computer, to anyone watching this, do it now. Prices are going to go skyrocket. Even with Either that, or you get ready to wait like a year or two before buying a computer. Just buy in 6 months between the AI data centers that keep driving up prices and the impact of helium shortages on chips. It's 6 months from now. It's going to be a terrible time to buy a computer. So either now or much later.
Go into petrochemicals, go into pharmaceuticals, all of which we're going to have a shortage of very quickly. And that all impacts the U.S.
RAM prices just went down. Yeah, this might be a small window of opportunity because I think a bunch of data center plans were canceled recently. I remember reading that story because of problems with the U.S. energy grid. And they see this probably crisis in the Gulf. And so that's also probably giving them cold feet. So a slight dip in RAM, this might be a buying opportunity. And otherwise, maybe wait a year or a year and a half probably before. The 6 months to a year from now, that's period you don't want to be buying a computer. Prices are going to go up.
This illusion the president is trying to say it doesn't matter is just that. It's a pure illusion. The Strait has a drastic and dramatic economic impact on us here in the United States. And that's why, but he doesn't want to admit that, it took him a little while with COVID. That with COVID, initially when he realized it was failing, the lockdown policies, what did he do? Well, he doubled down and he got angry. He said, oh, look at Sweden. They're a bunch of idiots. They don't know what they're doing. That didn't age very well. But it took him until the summer when he realized, this is actually backfiring, and he managed to completely reverse course and course correct. This would require a more humiliating course correction. And it's simply not within his ego to accept. But he's going to have to be badgered and pushed into it.
You're going to have every world leader in the world screaming at him. For him to maybe consider basically a surrender to Iran. And we're nowhere near the level of pain that could cause this to happen. So a month or two, at least, then you have all the world leaders, and maybe Trump would consider humiliating course correction at that point. But that would probably take a few more weeks. So yeah, I don't see this earliest this ending is 2 or 3 months. And that's a long shot. Most likely, I think Strait of Hormuz remain closed like 6 months, give or take a month, because that's what Iran needs to tank the med terms for Trump. And after that, he gets impeached. And so that's all they really need for victory. And once that happens, I think they'll be much more open to negotiations.
Because he won't do it on his own accord without the whole world burning in the process.
And you take a look at that price of oil it just had up there, and you saw that spike from the time he made his speech on Wednesday, it exploded and went up and has stayed up, and it hasn't come back down since, because now that it's, I guess, becoming evident even to the traders.
Yeah, I don't know which particular December 31st you're talking about option, but I do believe, I don't think the Strait of Hormuz will remain closed beyond to 2026. That much I believe. Iran, as a deterrence from their supreme leader dying, to really give the world a severe call. 6 months is enough. And after that, they'll be much more open to negotiations. And the West will be begging a lot harder for negotiations. And those two factors come together so that, I'd see the Strait of Hormuz opening. I think there's very small chance of Strait of Hormuz remaining closed more than beyond 2026.
That all the words of Trump don't mean anything about getting the thing open or opening the flow of oil. And that's also having an impact at home. If those were the domestic or the international issues I just showed you, this is a pretty big one on a Fox News poll here that 58% registered voters are opposed to this war so far. Now, you let that...
And that's... the full impact of it hasn't hit home yet. Those numbers will get worse for Trump very quickly.
Price tag on that oil just keep on triggering upwards. And see, that's why I'm worried a lot about whether he'll give authorization to this ground operation before. Because if he does nothing, that's just going to keep going up. And people like...
Yeah, he's on course for disaster as it is. So, he's fucked if he twiddles his thumbs. And if he surrenders, he's fucked too. And so I think he's going to gamble on a Hail Mary pass, some type of ground operation that he can use to leverage to try to get Iran to negotiate more on his terms so he can somehow call it a victory. It won't happen. That's the one thing that cannot happen. Iran will never allow this to end in a way that Trump can call a victory. So no matter what he takes with his ground forces, they will keep the conflict going, keep the Strait of Hormuz closed, and make him pay and make this a loss for the United States.
Like France are going to continue to bypass us to go through there, but it's going to keep the price up because everything that's associated with us.
No. And in any case, Trump has 2.5 more years, and this is no way this, unless it gets significantly worse in a way I can't see, but which I doubt. Yeah, it's not. He won't stay in office beyond his presidency, and besides, that's not even worse considering at this point, because he's going to get impeached by the Democrats and probably successfully too. So, yeah. So I don't. At this point, I think it's more likely than not that he's not going to serve his full second term as president because of this Iran war. Unfortunately.
Or Israel still won't go through the Strait of Hormuz. That number, but as the price of the gasoline and therefore everything else associated with it in the U.S. keeps going up, that number is going to rise about people who are opposed to the war and to Trump. And I fear that may put pressure on him to do something in a desperate attempt that
turning on Israel. That might make Iran open to negotiations. That much, it might be a way to get the Strait of Hormuz open, but he'd be destroyed politically in the United States. Israel still, although it's hated, it has huge impact on politicians, and so many politicians in its pocket that he'd get impeached right away. And yeah, he can't turn on Israel. It's not realistic.
Will shake things loose, and this will cause the Iranians to open up when nothing else would.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That's exactly the case. And the other key thing to remember about his motivation, aside from his ego and self-vindication and his unwillingness to recognize the errors of his past decisions, is his family and his friends are all deeply tied, not only politically, but financially, with the Israel lobby.
Yeah, that right there is another reason. Yes, the people around him are that he surrounded himself with are deeply tied to Israel. So yeah, there's no way he can turn it against Israel.
And the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Kuwaitis that you're talking.
I mean, officially turn against Israel. Doing something like trying to ceasefire with Iran or doing something Israel doesn't like. Yes, there's a chance he does that, but he will never officially denounce Israel. That's zero. Trying to end the war and Israel wants to continue, that's possible. He might do something that Israel doesn't agree with, but he will never turn against Israel.
Talking about billions of dollars of investments through Stephen Witkoff, billions of dollars of investments through Jared Kushner, billions of dollars investments to him, his wife, and his kids directly. And there's ties to the Israeli military-industrial complex, ties to his crypto operation through UAE, the ties to AI. Remember, Trump is deeply embedded in the AI network that helped fund and finance his campaign. Well, guess who's massive investors in that AI process? A lot of people in the Israel lobby, the Saudis, and the Emiratis. Yep. He wants to take over and help Israel lobby take over major American media, whether it's TikTok, CBS, or soon to be CNN and Warner Brothers. That's Larry Ellison and son. Larry Ellison, what is he dependent on increasingly? AI boom. What does AI boom need? Energy access. What does this all come back to? The only solution for those groups is a Iran regime that's destroyed. It's not enough just to open up the Straits of Hormuz. The Iranian regime has to be collapsed, has to capitulate.
Now, there's no chance of that happening. How? You're bombing. We're running out of bombs, and there's absolutely no indication of the Iranian regime collapsing. The contrary, it's getting stronger. We're galvanizing the people against U.S. and Israel. I think the chances of regime change as a result of bombing is zero at this point.
Has to be submissive, has to bend the knee. Anything less than that, and their AI dreams are gone. The Saudi Emirati dreams of regional hegemonic influence are gone. Dubai as an idea becomes a mirage that disappears like so many other mirages in the desert. So that's why he's under maximum pressure to cause complete capitulation. And it's why his real focus is on capitulation. And in lieu thereof, that requires regime change, collapse, which can only occur with increasing, escalating war incursion. That's why going in with the Belushis kind of makes them...
You need 1 million troops and go in and conquer the country. And there's no way that is happening. I mean, yes, Iran has 2 million strong army with its militia included. But we have ground air superiority, and I think if we had 1 million troops, that would be enough. But there's no way we have that. We don't have that. We'd have trouble getting 200,000
most sense from that perspective, because it's not about the islands, it's not about the uranium, it's instead about let's incur an insurrection, let's arm them. Now the problem with that is, again, it destabilizes Pakistan, just like trying to use the Kurds destabilizes Turkey. And so you have these other regional, this will get way out of control very quickly. One reason why the president kept a very tight ship this time around, well, there are two reasons. One was last time, because he didn't keep a tight ship, there was enough public activism in advance that rebelled against any regime change, including led by Charlie Kirk himself. This time around, he didn't want that.
You hear that? Charlie Kirk was one of the reasons the Iran war didn't start last year. And I honestly, if he'd lived, Trump wouldn't be fucked this way, and he wouldn't have done this decision. It's, oh my God, it's such tragedy that he died, because all the pain that's going to come from this Iran war, all of it could have been prevented if Charlie Kirk had lived. The people on the left who were celebrating his deaths are just idiots.
He didn't want to get the public blowback. He didn't want people to know his real motivations. That's why he can't explain his real motivations. He has to keep inventing them on the fly, because his real motivations is frankly a corrupt political and financial motivation to have the Israel lobby, the Saudis and the Emiratis keep his family fabulously and fantastically rich, and all his friends fabulously and fantastically rich after he leaves office.
Okay, so here's the problem, though, and I'm sorry, we've only got a few minutes left. We actually have Nima Al-Horshid coming on to give us the Iranian perspective here in about 7 minutes from now, so we're going to jump over for that. But man, I can't let you go before I ask this. All of these pressures that you've talked about here, internally, externally, allies, etc., still can't get us out of the spot that we're in right now with the straits closed and the regime in place. I mean, we said from the beginning, all they have to do is survive and keep hold of that. And I see nothing politically, domestically, or militarily that can force it out of their hands. Therefore, given all these pressures that you say, and I agree with you, that Trump has to get the regime out for any of these people to be happy. If he can't do that, what is he going to do? Because we can't do nothing with all of these financial pressures about to unload on us.
Well, without regime capitulation, there's only one other way to achieve that outcome, and frankly, it's mass genocide. And my concern is that that's the approach that's being contemplated in the back of Trump's mind.
Nukes.
That to do it by destroying their civilian infrastructure, destroying their ability to feed themselves, their ability to have safe drinking.
Okay, yes, that's that one I don't think is an option, because all the oil infrastructure in the Gulf gets destroyed if they go down this route. Because we haven't eliminated their ballistic missiles, and they have thousands of the Shahed drones, tens of thousands of those. So the entire region goes up in smoke. It's not a viable option, but he might try it. Let me put it this way: if he was willing to sacrifice all the Gulf states, and just went in to try to bomb Iran in Stone Age, maybe he could disintegrate Iran given enough time. But before that happens, all the nations of the Gulf would be totaled. And no, I don't even think he could if he decided to try to bomb them into Stone Age, because China and Russia would become more involved. Russia might send actual air defenses over if they haven't already. And yeah, I think they would interfere if the United States tried to go that far. So I don't think that's even an option.
Water, their ability to have meaningful transportation, their ability to police themselves, their ability to have any meaningful economy of any kind. That's why the problem is, and he convinces himself that Iran won't retaliate. That even if you take out all of Iran's infrastructure, that they won't take out all the Gulf countries' infrastructure.
They will. They will absolutely do that. And that's why every time he's started down this route, like he bombs the desalination plant in Iran, Iran turns around, bombs one in Bahrain, etc. I won't go into all the examples, but that's what's happened all so far. An eye for an eye. Iranians have absolutely succeeded in doing an eye for an eye so far, and returning any pain inflicted on them to the Gulf states. Then there's no reason to think that they wouldn't continue to be able to do so if Trump escalates.
And as much of Israel's infrastructure as they want. He just deludes himself with lies. And as long as he deludes himself with lies, then the escalatory trap, well identified by Professor Pate, is very much right in front of us. And Donald Trump is that man on that nuclear bomb, waving his hat around saying "yee-haw" as he ends the world.
Yikes.
That's a good place to conclude this. And yes, Trump is circling the drain. I've said it the day where he bombs Supreme Leader, that he's finished. And everything I've seen since then has just reinforced my belief that he has no off-ramp, he's fucked. And the only question at this point is how much of the rest of the world is fucked too. Like, is he going to escalate things till the Middle East is destroyed? Or is he going to do a humiliating negotiation and save the world economy somewhat by opening the Strait of Hormuz, like in the next month or two? Yeah, I think there's zero chance of that. In any case, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.